All right, if you're going to have to go to court, we know it's a scary proposition, especially if you've never been there before, because there's so much at stake. In this video series, I'm going to explain some of the basics about court preparation. In this first part, we're going to talk about some of the basics: what to wear, when to arrive, how long to expect to be there. In the next video, we're going to be talking about your testimony, what to say, what not to say, some of the things you need to understand about court so that you can be better prepared as a witness. So if you're like most of our clients, you're probably thinking, what do I wear to court? Well, it's important that you understand that there's no formal dress code. And it's also important that you understand we want you to be the best versions of yourself. In other words, if you're a painter or in construction, wear the clean version. Don't look like you just got done working before you show up to court. It's important that you're comfortable, but you also want to be appropriate and respectful of the place that you're at. Now, we need you in something that's comfortable but appropriate. Don't wear a three-piece suit if you've never worn one. You don't need to go out and buy all brand new clothes for court. The bottom line is, if you're wearing something that's uncomfortable, it's going to be noticeable. We want the judge focusing on you, your testimony, and your case, and not some other distraction. If you're wearing something that distracts the judge, you're probably doing something wrong. Now, we've seen several things in court over the years, and quite frankly, the truth is stranger than fiction. And you know what? Judges are people too. They notice these things and they make judgments. And you can say that's right or wrong, but it's true. Some of the things that we've seen over the years in court that you should avoid, well, it's not an exhaustive list, but some of the things you might want to think about are: avoid shorts, avoid ripped clothes, avoid flip-flops, or anything else that makes noise when you walk. You don't want the judge listening to what you're doing other than your testimony. You want to avoid loud hair, loud clothing. What I mean by loud hair or loud clothing, well, think things that are neon or bright, or quite frankly, they draw your eyes right to it. I'm not saying that you can't have those things. The courtroom's probably not the place for it. You don't want your hair dyed bright green or pink. Now, it doesn't mean you can't dye your hair. If you need to cover up some grays or things like that, that's perfectly acceptable. But the point is, if your hair is distracting to others, it could be distracting to the judge. And we don't want that for you. Focus on what you can control, and that is within your control. Think about some other things like piercings or tattoos. Again, that might be your way of life and your way of expressing things, but you need to understand that judges are human and they're going to make decisions. You have no idea whether or not your judge likes tattoos or piercings. And if you are able to cover them up, do so. If you can't, then don't. But understand the judge is going to be making a decision, and we don't want the judge distracted. Now, when should you arrive to court? We get this question often. The bottom line is, you want to err on the side of being too early rather than being too late. A judge can get pretty upset when someone's late to their courtroom. Now, sitting there and waiting for a judge can be frustrating and time consuming, but you don't want to be on the wrong side of that decision. You also need to think about your geographic area. How far away are you from the court? Have you checked that during traffic? Because you don't want to plan on getting to court and then find out you live in an area that has traffic. Plan ahead. Plan on getting there early. Avoid traffic. You also need to be thinking about security. You should plan an extra 15 minutes to a half hour of getting through a security line. I would rather you be there way too early than way too late. Now, at the same time, you don't want to get there before the courthouse even opens. So make sure you understand when the courthouse opens. You can do so by checking their website. How long will court last? Well, like anything, it depends. It really depends upon your specific area. Some courts have a smaller court call and they can be more on time because they have less cases available. Other courts have a lot of cases up every day, and it's kind of hit or miss as to what time you will actually be heard by a judge. For example, in one of the counties that we practice in, it is very common to see several cases scheduled at 9 a.m. and several at 9:30. The 9 a.m. cases are what we call status cases. And in that situation, it's a general status of what is going on in the case. The parties are going to be giving some information to the judge, keeping the judge informed of what's going on and are we moving forward. There's not going to be a decision made, and there's not going to be argument by both sides. Now, the 9:30 cases, on the other hand, are typically when you need the judge to make a decision. So depending upon the number of cases at 9 o'clock will impact whether or not your case is heard at 9:30, 10:30, or sometimes even 1:30. So it's really important to understand what your case is scheduled for so that you show up on time, that you arrive prepared, because the last thing you want to do is to leave court and have something catastrophically go wrong because you weren't prepared. All right, if you have trial or a hearing, you need to plan to be out the whole day or get your attorney's advice based upon your specifics. A trial or hearing can last multiple days and even several weeks. So it's important that you get with your attorney and make sure you get the paperwork you need so that you can get it to your employer, daycare provider, etc. Now, if you have court that's not for a hearing or a trial, it's best to practice to take off a half a day, depending upon what time your case is at. For example, if you have court at 9 a.m., you may want to take off the morning. If you have court at 1 p.m., take off the afternoon. Talk to your attorney to be sure, but plan on a half a day. Like we said, sometimes you get out early. Hey, maybe that's a pleasant surprise. Enjoy yourself, but take the time off. That way you're not rushing or feeling that anxiety of having to get back to work. This has been part 1 of our video series on preparing yourself for court. In our next video, we're going to be talking about testimony, specifically your testimony and what to expect.